The universe never hands out blessings without a test. But the exam isn't on paper, it's in patience. When everything seems quiet, when nothing moves, when doors stay shut, that's your classroom. Most people quit right before the bell rings. But if you can hold your peace one moment longer, the miracle walks in. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what those tests really mean, how to recognize them, how to pass them, and how to move through them with peace instead of panic. You'll learn why things often fall apart right before they fall together, and how faith turns the breaking point into the breakthrough. By the end, you'll stop fearing delay and start trusting divine timing, because every test you face is proof that your miracle is near. I've seen this pattern in my own life and in the lives of so many others. You pray for change and suddenly the old life shakes apart. You declare, "I'm ready for abundance," and your finances tighten overnight. It feels cruel until you realize the universe doesn't test to break you, it tests to reveal you. Every time you stay centered when everything spins, you prove that your vibration has changed. That's the final doorway before the gift arrives. Most people give up at that doorway. They think delay means denial, silence means absence, chaos means curse. But the truth is the opposite. The closer the blessing, the louder the test. Once you know this, you stop running from resistance. You start recognizing it as the sign that you're almost there. In this lesson, we're going to uncover the spiritual logic behind life's toughest moments, the invisible order inside what looks like chaos. You'll see how every major breakthrough follows the same divine sequence: desire, disruption, decision, and delivery. I'll share real stories of how people reached the edge, held their faith, and watched the impossible unfold. We'll talk about the one mistake that delays every miracle, the hidden signal that tells you your test is almost over, and the simple prayer that turns panic into peace. Stay with me till the end, because there's a point in every test when most people let go, but if you know what it looks like, you'll never miss your miracle again. Here's something most people completely miss when they find themselves standing in the middle of chaos. The test isn't a punishment, it's a proving ground. It's the universe's way of asking, can you hold your belief when it's no longer convenient? Because faith that only works when life looks good isn't faith, it's comfort. And comfort doesn't create miracles. You see, the moment you ask for more abundance, more peace, more purpose, life begins rearranging itself to match that request. But to move into that higher space, the universe first has to dissolve what no longer fits. That's why the test shows up. It's not trying to take something from you. It's trying to make room for what's already yours. It's like this. You pray for growth, and suddenly the ground beneath you starts to crack. The relationships that used to feel secure begin to drift. The job you thought would last forever starts to feel too small. You tell yourself things are falling apart, but what if they're just falling open? What if the universe is doing construction work behind the scenes, tearing down walls so the miracle can fit through the doorway? Every test is divine renovation. It may look messy, but the mess is proof that something better is being built. I remember once counseling a woman who lost her job just days after declaring she was ready for her purpose. She was devastated. She said, "Florence, how could this happen right after I finally said yes to God?" And I told her, sometimes saying yes to your calling means saying goodbye to your comfort. A week later, she was offered a position that used the very gifts she'd prayed to express, in a field she'd never would have found if she hadn't been pushed out. That's how divine order works. It removes the unnecessary before it delivers the extraordinary. Here's what I want you to see. The test is not life being cruel, it's life being precise. You can't take old vibrations into new realities. If you're carrying fear, doubt, or guilt, the test will surface those emotions so they can be released. Think of it like refining gold. The fire doesn't destroy the gold, it burns away what isn't pure so the shine can come through. The same law applies to you. You're not being broken, you're being refined. And when you're in that fire, it's tempting to say, I must have done something wrong. But no, your prayer is what called the fire. You asked for expansion, and expansion requires heat. Faith isn't tested in stillness, it's tested in motion. It's tested when everything you believe in looks like it's crumbling, when the door slams shut and you have to decide whether to knock again or trust that another one is opening just down the hall. Let me ask you this, have you ever noticed how quiet it gets before something amazing happens? That's not emptiness, that's space. Space being cleared for blessing. Miracles can't land where there's no room. The universe will remove what blocks you before it rewards you, and the test is simply the removal process. It may feel uncomfortable, but that discomfort is sacred. It means life is shifting in your favor. So, when things seem to fall apart, don't curse the collapse, bless it, because it's proof the old structure has finished its purpose. The universe never subtracts without the intention to multiply. But it has to know you'll keep the faith in the in-between. The test asks, will you trust the promise even when the picture hasn't appeared? That's where transformation begins, where sight ends and knowing starts. And once you understand this, something beautiful happens. You stop fighting the test. You stop panicking when things get shaky. You start to say, this must mean I'm close. You start to recognize that the pressure you feel is not punishment, it's proof that the universe is finishing your order. You asked for change, and change is exactly what you're getting. Because here's the secret. Without the test, the miracle wouldn't fit you. You'd still be shaped by the fears of who you were, not the faith of who you're becoming. Every test is a doorway dressed like a dead end. Every delay is a bridge disguised as a block. And if you can stand there, right there, in the space between what's falling away and what's forming, you'll feel the shift. You'll feel that divine calibration. So don't rush the process. Don't rebuild what's collapsing. Let the fire do its work. Let the universe rearrange your foundation, because what's being built next will require the strength this season is giving you. And when you can finally see that, when you stop running from the heat and start standing inside it with peace, something inside you whispers, this isn't the end. It's the edge. What I'm about to share might sound a little strange at first, but stay with me because this is where the whole pattern starts to make sense. When things begin to get worse instead of better, that isn't a sign you've lost your alignment. It's the moment life begins testing the strength of it. It's almost as if the universe leans in close and whispers, you say you believe now, can you believe without proof? Because anyone can hold faith when everything is blooming, when every door opens easily, when every prayer is answered in visible form. But the real demonstration of faith happens in the moments when appearances defy it, when the thing you've asked for seems to move further away the more you affirm it, when nothing you can see seems to match what you've spoken. That's when faith must stop being theory and become knowing. Imagine this. A seed in the ground doesn't see the sun, doesn't feel the breeze, doesn't hear the gardener's plans. All it knows is darkness and pressure. But inside that pressure, a silent miracle is happening. The outer shell is breaking open so that new life can rise. That's faith in the fire. That's what happens when everything you knew starts to crack. The outer shell of your old understanding can't contain the new you that's trying to emerge. So the universe applies a little heat, not to hurt you, but to help you grow. And that's the part most people resist. They see the heat as harm instead of help. They say, I must have done something wrong, or maybe I'm being punished. But what's really happening is purification. Just as fire reveals pure gold by burning away the dross, every test reveals your true faith by exposing what still clings to fear. The louder fear screams, the closer you are to freedom. Because fear always shouts loudest, right before it loses its power. It's the final flare before it goes out. When you can recognize that, when you can look at chaos and say, this is just the final flare, you stop panicking and you start trusting. I remember a man once came to me, desperate, because everything in his business had collapsed. He'd lost contracts, clients, and confidence all at once. He said, Florence, I can't understand it. I've been speaking my word, I've been faithful. Why is this happening now? And I told him what I'll tell you. When the fire comes, it's not the law failing, it's the law fulfilling. The word has gone forth, and everything that contradicts it must now fall away. He was being refined, not rejected. A month later, the same clients who left returned with better offers, and he realized the fire had only burned off what was unstable, leaving behind a stronger foundation. Here's what makes the difference. Most people think their words lose power when conditions get tough, but it's the opposite. Your words gather power when you keep speaking them in the storm. Because it's easy to affirm divine order when the sun is shining, but when thunder rolls and you still declare, all things are working together for good, the entire universe stops and listens. That vibration carries weight. That's when the unseen begins to move mountains on your behalf. Now, if you're in that place right now, the place where everything feels uncertain, where the old is gone but the new hasn't arrived yet, don't rush out of it. Don't run back to what feels familiar just because it's comfortable. Sit in that fire with grace. It's sacred ground. You're being shaped into someone who can hold the blessing without fear of losing it. Because if the miracle came too soon, it might crush you under its weight. But the test is building your strength, stretching your faith, expanding your capacity to receive. Think of it like a kiln where clay is turned into porcelain. The heat isn't punishment, it's transformation. Before the fire, the clay is fragile. It can't hold water, can't withstand weight. But after the fire, it shines, it holds, it endures. That's what the test is doing for you. It's making you strong enough to hold what you prayed for. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop resisting the fire, it cools. The moment you stop asking, why me, and start saying thank you, everything shifts. Gratitude shortens the test. Acceptance accelerates alignment. Because the universe is never cruel, it's careful. It will not give you what you can't yet sustain. So when life turns up the heat, when the night feels endless, when everything seems to contradict the promise, remember this: it's not over, it's on fire. And that fire is the birthplace of the miracle. Stand still. Keep your peace. Keep speaking your word. Keep blessing the unseen order, even if you can't yet see it. Because once the flames fade, what's left will be the pure gold of your belief, and that gold will attract every blessing that belongs to you. There comes a moment, right before the miracle, when everything starts to look like proof that you've failed. The signs don't line up. The people you counted on disappear. The opportunity you thought was secure vanishes like smoke. It's the moment where faith feels foolish, and your mind whispers, maybe it's time to give up. But what I want you to understand, what you have to remember in that moment, is that this is not evidence of failure. It's evidence you've reached the edge, and the edge is where every miracle begins. The universe always tests you at the threshold, not to hold you back, but to make sure you're ready to step through. It's the final exam before promotion, the last gust of wind before flight, the silence right before the sound breaks open. The edge feels like ending because it's the border between what was and what's about to be. This is where so many lose heart because the evidence doesn't yet match the promise. They say, if I were really on the right path, it wouldn't be this hard. But that's not true. The truth is, difficulty isn't a sign that you're off track. It's the universe applying pressure to ensure your old identity doesn't cross into your new life. The test doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means the old pattern is trying to hold on. Think about it like this. When a snake sheds its skin, it doesn't look graceful. It rubs against rocks. It writhes. It struggles to get free. But that friction is what allows the new body to emerge. If it stopped midway, if it gave up because of the discomfort, it would suffocate in the skin that no longer fits. You're shedding too. The edge is the rub against the rock. I once knew a woman who prayed every day for a fresh start. She'd say, I'm ready. I know there's more for me. But then, her relationship fell apart, her apartment lease ended, her friends began to drift away. She came to me and said, Florence, how can this be a fresh start when it feels like everything's being taken from me? I told her what I'll tell you now. When you ask for new beginnings, the universe removes what blocks the way. It's not loss, it's relocation. And sure enough, within months, she was in a new city, doing work that lit her soul, surrounded by people who matched her vibration. She realized the evidence of endings had really been proof of beginnings. But here's where it gets even deeper. Every time you declare a new intention, your subconscious mind immediately brings up the opposite of it. Not because it's trying to sabotage you, but because it's showing you what still needs to be healed. You say, I am abundant, and suddenly an unexpected bill arrives. You affirm, I am loved, and someone disappoints you. You declare, I am peaceful, and chaos knocks at your door. That's not contradiction, it's confirmation. The outer world is mirroring what's being cleared from within. It's the universe saying, let's make sure you really believe this. The test shows you where you still doubt. And when you recognize it, you can bless it instead of fearing it. Now, I want you to imagine you're climbing a mountain. The air thins, the ground narrows, the climb gets harder the closer you reach the top. If you didn't know how mountains work, you'd think the thinning air was a sign to turn back. But the thinning air is proof you're ascending. That's what the edge feels like. It's the thinning air before the view clears. So when everything feels tight, when circumstances press against you, when it feels like you can't breathe under the weight of uncertainty, remember, that's the altitude of breakthrough. You're not falling. You're rising. It's in this space that faith stops being words and starts being atmosphere. You stop praying for miracles and start living from them. You don't have to beg for the promise. You embody it. You say, I know this moment looks like loss, but divine order is at work. You say, I may not see it yet, but I trust that it's forming perfectly. You say it and you keep saying it until the outer world catches up. Because once you're at the edge, the only thing left to do is trust the invisible bridge. You can't see it until your foot steps forward. That's how divine law works. It builds beneath your faith. And here's the quiet secret most don't know. The universe doesn't test your strength to see if you'll fail. It tests your surrender to see if you'll let it carry you. The miracle isn't waiting on your effort, it's waiting on your peace. When you stop trying to prove, to fix, to rush, the current picks you up and moves you exactly where you're meant to be. It's not about surviving the test, it's about relaxing into it. That's the passage through. So the next time everything starts to unravel, the next time it looks like every prayer has hit a wall, pause right there. Don't panic, don't speak defeat. Smile softly and whisper, this must mean I'm close. Because the collapse you're seeing is just the old structure crumbling under the weight of the new. You've reached the evidence of the edge, and that means the miracle is already in motion. The moment you stop fighting the test and start flowing with it, the universe stops testing and starts delivering. The edge, beloved, is not the end of faith, it's the beginning of proof. Here's something few people ever truly realize until life has pressed them so hard that they have no choice but to listen. The universe doesn't measure you by how much you struggle. It measures you by how you respond while you're in the struggle. Every test has less to do with what's happening around you and everything to do with what's happening through you. Because circumstances are like mirrors, they only reflect what's being believed, what's being repeated, what's being allowed. The great shift, the one that changes everything, happens when you stop reacting to appearances and start responding to truth. Most people never get that far. They see the storm and run for cover. They see the bill, the conflict, the silence, and immediately speak from fear. They don't realize that each word, each emotion, each decision at that point is choosing whether the test will repeat or resolve. The universe pauses in those moments. It listens, not to your words, but to your vibration, and the vibration says everything. I've often said that faith is not a performance, it's a posture. It's the quiet calm you hold when the world is losing its balance. It's the decision to breathe deeply instead of to panic, because what you do when nothing seems to work determines how the law will move next. And so many of us, myself included in earlier years, spent precious time trying to fix the test instead of understanding it. We fight what's meant to be felt. We argue with what's meant to be accepted. We rush to solve what's meant to be surrendered. And in doing so, we delay the lesson. Because the moment you resist the test, it turns into struggle. The moment you soften to it, it turns into guidance. The test transforms depending on how you meet it. Let's talk about that sacred pause, the space between reaction and response. Every time something unexpected happens, there's a tiny window before you decide what to make of it. It's in that window that miracles are either invited or delayed. If you rush to fear, the universe mirrors back more confusion. If you hold peace for even a breath longer, you invite divine rearrangement. That pause is your power. It's where you reclaim choice. Most of us fill that space with anxiety, with overthinking, with self-blame. But if you can fill it with faith, just a quiet, knowing that everything is still in order, you change the outcome before it even unfolds. It's like an archer holding the bowstring taut, waiting for the perfect stillness before letting go. The aim is never about strength, it's about alignment. There was a young man I once met who kept finding himself in the same situation. He'd start a business, face one setback, and then abandon it in frustration. Over and over he'd tell me, every time I get close, something always goes wrong. I asked him to describe his first thought when that something wrong appeared. He said, I think it means I'm not meant for this. There it was, the reaction that kept repeating the test. The universe wasn't blocking his success, it was asking for his faith. It wanted to know, will you speak defeat again? or will you hold steady this time? When he finally learned to pause, to bless the obstacle instead of cursing it, his circumstances shifted almost overnight. Clients called, finances improved, ideas flowed. The law hadn't changed, he had. His response changed the result. I want you to remember this. Nothing in life is neutral. Everything responds to the tone you set. If you meet the test with panic, it expands. If you meet it with peace, it dissolves. The universe is an infinite echo chamber. It doesn't argue with your words, it amplifies them. That's why reaction is repetition and response is release. Reaction says, I don't trust this process. Response says, I know this too is divine. Reaction closes the loop tighter. Response opens it. And what's beautiful is that you never need perfect faith to change a situation. You only need one conscious moment of choosing peace instead of fear. That single decision begins to shift everything downstream. Here's the paradox. We're taught to do more when life feels uncertain, but the law teaches us to do less, to still the waters before steering the boat. Because when you move from fear, your actions scatter energy. When you move from peace, your actions focus it. The miracle doesn't come from doing everything right, it comes from being right within yourself. The test asks, can you hold still long enough for the blessing to find you? And when you can, it does. Now, you might wonder, but Florence, how do I stay calm when everything is falling apart? The answer isn't to force calmness, it's to remember truth. The truth that every appearance is temporary, every storm passes, every delay hides direction. You remind yourself, this, too, is under divine law. Say it softly when fear rises, whisper it until you feel it. Because when you choose that truth instead of the panic no longer has a place to live, and soon enough, the test has nothing left to test. There is no power outside your consciousness greater than your power to respond. You can't control every circumstance, but you can control the atmosphere of your heart. That's where the shift begins. You can bless the test into transformation or curse it back into cycle. You can pause, breathe, and declare peace, and that single breath becomes the bridge to your next miracle. So the next time the world asks for your reaction, give it your response instead. The test will end faster, the blessing will arrive clearer, and you'll discover what the universe has known all along. That peace was never the reward for passing the test, it was the way through it. There's a sacred moment in every test where emotion rises so strong that it feels like it could sweep you away, and that's usually the moment where transformation is trying hardest to happen. You see, emotion isn't the enemy, it's the raw material of your next reality. It's energy in motion, it's power asking for direction, and most people either drown in it or deny it, not realizing that both responses keep them stuck. They think strength means holding it in, pretending not to care, pushing through with forced positivity. But that isn't strength, that's suppression. True strength is allowing yourself to feel without letting the feeling define you. It's standing in the middle of the storm and saying, I will let this pass through me, but I will not let it stay in me. Because feelings are like weather, they're meant to move. When you hold on to them, you stop the flow. And prosperity, peace, healing, all of it depends on flow. There's a quiet art I call emotional alchemy, and it's one of the highest demonstrations of spiritual mastery. It means taking what once made you reactive and turning it into something that raises your vibration instead of lowering it. It's the ability to take fear and transform it into faith, to take frustration and turn it into fuel, to take heartbreak and let it open you rather than harden you. And you don't do this by force, you do it by awareness. You start noticing when you slip into old emotional patterns, and instead of judging yourself, you bless the moment. You say, there it is, the old fear trying to visit. I bless you, but I no longer live here. That one act of acknowledgement begins to dissolve its power. Because what you bless can't bind you, and what you resist will always persist. I once met a man who had lost everything in a failed business deal: money, reputation, confidence. He was angry at himself, angry at God, angry at the world. Every day he repeated, I can't believe this happened to me. His anger became a magnet, drawing more frustration, more closed doors, more of the same. I told him something simple. Stop asking why this happened and start blessing what it's trying to teach. At first, he resisted. He said, how can I bless what broke me? And I said, "You bless it because it's showing you your strength. You bless it because it's bringing you face to face with your faith." When he finally softened, when he blessed the very situation that he had caused him pain, everything began to shift. He received an unexpected opportunity, rebuilt his finances, and found a sense of peace he'd never known before. The loss hadn't been punishment, it had been preparation. That's emotional alchemy in motion. When you learn to transmute emotion, you stop being a slave to your moods and start being a steward of your energy. Every feeling becomes feedback. A teacher, a signal. Anxiety tells you where you're still trying to control. Anger shows you where you've abandoned your boundaries. Sadness reveals what you've outgrown. Instead of burying those emotions under busyness or denial, you let them teach you. You breathe through them. You turn them into prayer. You say, "Thank you for showing me where I've been out of alignment. Thank you for guiding me back to peace." And slowly, the waves settle. The charge dissolves. The feeling transforms from weight into wisdom. One of the fastest ways to practice this is through gratitude. It may sound simple, even too simple, but gratitude is the key that unlocks every trapped emotion. The moment you can find something, anything, to be thankful for in the midst of pain, you've shifted from victim to creator. Gratitude is the flame that burns through confusion. It's the act of saying, "Even though I don't understand this yet, I trust that good is forming from it." It's the declaration that no experience is wasted. And the law responds instantly to that vibration. When you bless what you used to curse, life begins to bless you in return. You can even turn emotional pain into creative power. Many of the world's most beautiful works, songs, paintings, stories, breakthroughs were born out of what someone once thought would destroy them. Pain has texture. It has depth. And when you don't run from it, it gives you the empathy and wisdom that make you magnetic to miracles. That's why the universe allows these emotional waves. It's not to punish you. It's to polish you. It's to bring light into the parts of you that forgot they could shine. So, when the next wave of emotion comes, when you feel that heaviness, that doubt, that ache, don't rush to fix it. Don't call it wrong. Sit with it as you would a friend who's just come to tell you something important. Listen, bless it, let it pass through. Say softly, "I choose to let this energy rise higher." Then move gently, breathe deeply, and imagine that emotion turning into light. Because it will. It always does when you stop fighting it. The ones who pass life's tests aren't those who never feel pain. They're the ones who know how to turn pain into purpose. They don't avoid emotion, they elevate it. They let love, gratitude, and awareness do the work of healing. And that's how you master the art of emotional alchemy, by remembering that nothing in you is broken, everything in you is becoming. There's a sacred truth that reveals itself once you've walked through enough storms, once you've wept enough prayers, once you've seen the same patterns circle back again and again, until you finally whisper, "I thought I already learned this." And that truth is this: the universe never punishes, it only teaches. Life doesn't send tests to torment you, it repeats them to remind you. Every cycle, every delay, every "why is this happening again?" moment is the universe's way of saying, "Are you ready to choose differently this time?" Because no test ever ends through resistance. It only ends through recognition. The pattern dissolves, not when you fight it harder, but when you see it clearly enough to stop playing the same role inside it. You can't outrun a lesson you were born to learn. You can only understand it so deeply that it no longer needs to exist. Most people don't realize this, and so they spend years in emotional reruns, living the same story, with different faces, different jobs, different settings. But the same underlying energy. One person leaves, another arrives, and yet the same argument plays out. The same opportunities appear, the same fears surface, the same endings repeat. They say, "Why do I keep attracting this?" But what they're really attracting is a chance to finally graduate from it. Every test that reappears is just grace in disguise, giving you another chance to pass. The universe is infinitely patient. It doesn't grade on failure, only on faith. You'll never be denied what's meant for you, but you will be reinvited into the lessons that make you ready for it. There was a woman I once knew who always found herself in financial struggle. No matter how much money she earned, it seemed to vanish. She affirmed prosperity, read every spiritual book, tithed faithfully, and still the bills would multiply. One day she came to me in frustration, saying, "Florence, I think God has forgotten me." I said, "My dear, God never forgets, but the law can only reflect what you expect. Every time you say it's always something, you call that something into being." Her eyes widened as she realized how often she spoke those words. I told her, "Your test isn't money, it's expectation. The lesson will repeat until your faith speaks louder than your fear." She began catching herself, blessing every expense, affirming, "I am supplied before I ask." Within months, the cycle broke. The pattern hadn't been about money, it had been about mindset. The universe wasn't withholding, it was waiting for her to choose differently. And this is what I want you to hear. Every time you face a familiar difficulty, you stand at a divine fork in the road. One path leads back into repetition, the other leads toward revelation. The difference between them is your response. The moment you say, "I've seen this before, and I'm not choosing fear this time," you open a new reality. That's the choice point. That's where karma becomes grace, where cycles become steps, where suffering becomes wisdom. Because life isn't testing whether you can avoid discomfort, it's testing whether you can stay conscious inside it. Consciousness is what ends the loop. If you look closely, every test has a tone. It begins to feel familiar before it becomes visible. You sense the energy, you hear the inner dialogue, you recognize the feeling. That's your signal that the universe is offering you another chance to respond differently. And when you catch it, when you smile and say, "Ah, I see you," instead of falling into panic, that's victory. The law no longer needs to mirror it back to you once you've mastered the emotion behind it. That's why awareness is the highest form of prayer. It tells the universe. Lesson learned, message received. Sometimes the greatest act of power isn't changing the situation, it's refusing to react the way you used to. You don't argue with the delay, you bless it. You don't fear the silence, you rest inside it. You don't demand the miracle, you align with it. And in that shift, everything changes. The old vibration loses its charge, the test loses its purpose, and a door opens quietly, almost imperceptibly, into something new. It's not dramatic, it's not always sudden. But it's real, and you'll feel it. The peace will arrive before the proof. So if you find yourself saying, "I can't believe I'm back here again," take heart. You're not back where you started, you're back with awareness. You've climbed the spiral a little higher, the view looks familiar, but you're seeing it from a new altitude. You're not being punished, you're being promoted. The universe is asking for your final answer. Will you react, or will you respond? Will you repeat, or will you release? The test is not about right or wrong, it's about resonance. Once your energy matches the lesson disappears. Bless the repetition, for it means the law hasn't given up on you. Bless the delay, for it means life is still unfolding in your favor. Bless the test, because every time it returns, it carries less weight than before. One day, it won't need to return at all. One day, you'll simply smile in the face of what used to terrify you and feel nothing but peace, and that peace will be your graduation. That's the real miracle. Not that life stopped testing you, but that you stopped needing the test to prove who you are. Here's something I learned long ago, and it changed the way I see everything that happens around me. Every delay speaks, every obstacle carries a message, every unanswered prayer whispers direction. Nothing is silent in the universe. Life doesn't speak in words, it speaks in symbols, in rhythms, in the choreography of events that seem ordinary until you listen with your spirit instead of your logic. We call them coincidences, setbacks, bad timing, but in truth, they are the handwriting of divine intelligence tracing new patterns into our days. The universe has a language, and delay is one of its most sacred dialects. When something doesn't arrive when you expect it to, when plans unravel, when doors close at the very moment you are ready to walk through them, it isn't rejection, it's revelation. It's life saying, "Not this door, not yet, not here." The universe doesn't use the word no, it uses the word wait as a bridge between your desire and your destiny. Most people never learn how to read that language. They see delay as punishment, they call obstacles bad luck, they interpret silence as abandonment. But the truth is that divine timing is always at work, and what looks like stillness is often a rearrangement happening behind the scenes. You can't see the threads moving because they're being woven in a higher room. You only feel the tug, the pull, the pause, and you mistake it for nothing happening. But the pause is never empty. It's full of alignment. It's full of protection. It's full of preparation. Sometimes the only reason your miracle hasn't arrived yet is because it's still being built to the right measurements for your soul. You wouldn't want something that doesn't fit the person you're becoming. I remember once praying for something I thought I needed desperately. I affirmed it, visualized it, declared it as mine. But everything I tried to move forward with it seemed to backfire. Weeks stretched into months, and frustration started whispering, "Maybe this isn't for you." One night, in that space between surrender and exhaustion, I heard that quiet voice within say, "It's already done, but not yet delivered." That one phrase changed everything. It reminded me that delays aren't denials, they're divine deadlines. When the time is right, nothing can stop it. And when it isn't right, nothing can make it happen sooner. We live in a universe of order, not chaos, and order operates on precision, not impatience. If you pay attention, you'll start to notice how life repeats symbols. The same type of situation will keep circling until you read it correctly. That's why I say that problems don't block the path, they are the path. They're guideposts pointing you toward alignment. For example, if you're constantly running into financial obstacles, it might not be about the money at all, it might be about the belief beneath it. Are you afraid of losing? Do you secretly think wealth means greed? Do you feel unworthy of ease? The universe will keep sending experiences that bring that belief to the surface until you choose to rewrite it. When you finally do, the outer struggle disappears like mist in the Sunday. The problem was never outside you, it was the mirror of what you were ready to see. That's what I call the mirror of circumstance. Life is always showing you yourself. It holds up reflections, sometimes tender, sometimes harsh, always truthful. The people who trigger you, the situations that frustrate you, the delays that unnerve you, all of them are mirrors. They aren't there to humiliate you, they're there to illuminate you. They're saying, "Look here, beloved, here's the vibration that's asking for healing." And when you stop judging what the mirror shows, the mirror clears, the fog lifts. You can finally see the next step clearly, because you're no longer clouded by emotion or assumption. There's an old saying that a delay is God's way of protecting you from something not yet aligned, and I've seen this proven more times than I can count. I once knew a man who missed a flight he'd been desperate to catch. He cursed his luck, blamed the traffic, and spent hours sulking in the terminal until he learned that the plane had been grounded due to a malfunction. That missed flight saved his life. And isn't that how it goes? The relationship that didn't work, the job you didn't get, the plan that fell apart, they were all forms of mercy you didn't yet recognize. The universe knows the map better than we know the moment. When you begin to read delays not as detours, but as divine dialogue, peace takes root where panic once lived. You stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and start asking, "What is this teaching?" You stop fighting the waiting and start listening to it. Because the wait has wisdom. It softens your edges, it strengthens your trust, it stretches your faith until it can hold more light. When you rush what's still ripening, you end up with fruit that's sweet for a moment and rotten by morning. But when you let divine timing do its work, the fruit nourishes everything it touches. So if you find yourself in a delay, if you've been praying, affirming, believing, and still nothing seems to move, don't curse the stillness. Bless it. Say, "Something is rearranging for my highest good." Say, "This pause is power." Because one day soon, when the timing clicks, it will all arrive. So effortlessly that you'll wonder why you ever doubted it. And then you'll realize the delay was never punishment. It was preparation in perfect disguise. Here's something the Spirit revealed to me after years of watching people pray for change while circling inside the same struggles again and again. Life never argues with you, it reflects you. Every condition, every person, every so-called coincidence, every bit of timing that feels inconvenient or unfair, it's all a mirror, and that mirror isn't mocking you, it's teaching you. It shows you the picture that your inner thoughts have been painting in secret, the beliefs you've whispered beneath your affirmations, the expectations you didn't even realize you carried. You can't fight the reflection and expect it to change. The only way the outer world softens is when the inner world shifts its stance. And once you begin to see that, you stop blaming, you stop resisting, you start listening. You ask, what is this moment reflecting about my own vibration? What is this person, this delay, this disappointment trying to tell me? And if you stay still enough, if you breathe through the sting of recognition instead of turning away from it, the message comes clear. It's a hard truth to learn because the ego wants to believe that life happens to us. It wants villains and victims, praise and pity, right and wrong. But the universe doesn't speak that language. It doesn't moralize. It magnetizes. It takes your most consistent vibration and mirrors it back into form. That's why the same kind of situations seem to repeat until you finally stop saying, why them? And start saying, what in me? Because why looks backward, but what in me looks inward, and inward is where all creation begins. The mirror of circumstance isn't cruel, it's compassionate. It will keep showing you the same lesson until you stop identifying as the wounded and start identifying as the wise. I once counseled a woman who kept attracting partners who were distant and unreliable. She said, Florence, I just don't understand. I keep affirming that I deserve love, and yet the same kind of man shows up every time. I asked her gently, when you're alone, when the room is quiet, what do you actually believe about being loved? She paused for a long moment before whispering, I think love always leaves. There it was, the vibration hiding behind the words. The universe wasn't ignoring her affirmations, it was answering her belief. Once she recognized that belief and began to bless it, to speak life into it, to say, love stays with me because love is me, everything changed. The mirror cleared because the reflection changed at the source. Within months, she found herself in a relationship rooted in peace, not pursuit. That's how the mirror of circumstance works. It can't show you something you don't already hold. And that truth is both humbling and liberating. Humbling, because it means we are responsible for the energy we emit. Liberating, because it means we are never trapped by appearances. The moment you change your inner conviction, the outer picture begins to reorganize. Maybe not instantly, but inevitably. It's like the fog that forms on a mirror when you breathe on it. No amount of wiping clears it until you stop exhaling the same condensation. The moment you still yourself, the moment you let calm return, the reflection reappears. Life is the same way. It reflects clarity when you stop clouding it with fear. There's a simple practice I often suggest when people find themselves trapped in confusion. Instead of trying to fix the outer situation, speak to the reflection. Say out loud, this is only showing me what I'm ready to heal. Say it with reverence, not resentment. Because every mirror moment, no matter how uncomfortable, is an act of grace. It's the universe trusting that you're ready to see the truth about your own creation. And once you see it, you have the power to change it. You don't need to defend yourself against the reflection. You just need to remember that you're the one holding the light. Now, there's another layer to this, one that few ever talk about. Sometimes, the mirror shows you not what you believe, but what you used to believe. You're already changing, but the residue of the old vibration is still echoing through your life. That's when it's most important not to judge what you see. You look around and say, but Florence, I've done the inner work, why is this still happening? And I say, because energy takes time to settle. You're seeing the afterglow of your former consciousness. The mirror is catching up to the new you. Don't confuse lag time with lack. The reflection is recalibrating. So the next time you find yourself in a situation that feels unfair, the next time you catch the universe holding up a mirror you don't want to face, resist the urge to smash it. Sit down with it, thank it. Say, I see you and I bless what you're showing me. That simple act of acknowledgement shifts everything. Because mirrors only reflect light, they can't create darkness. The darkness we think we see is just the shadow of an unhealed belief, passing between us and the truth. And once we move out of the way, once we reclaim that truth, the reflection shines clean again. This is the secret that turns the test into revelation. When you stop fighting the reflection, you start receiving the correction. And that correction doesn't come as punishment, it comes as peace. That's when the lesson ends, that's when the miracle begins, and that's when you finally understand that the mirror was never showing you failure, it was showing you freedom. What if I told you that most of what you call a setback isn't really a setback at all, it's divine sequencing? That many of the things you label as going wrong are actually life trying to lead you to something that could only arrive if the timing first went wrong in your favor? You see, there's a difference between delay that's divinely arranged and detours that are humanly constructed. Divine delay is sacred. It's the universe moving pieces into position, aligning people, places, and purpose before you step forward. But a human detour is when we, in our impatience or fear, try to force what's not ready and end up wandering in circles until grace pulls us back on course. The beauty is that both serve you. The delay teaches trust, the detour teaches surrender. Both shape the soul that will hold the miracle. I remember once praying for a specific opportunity that felt perfect. Everything lined up, every sign seemed to point to yes, and then, at the last possible moment, it vanished. I felt betrayed by the very law I'd spent my life teaching. I asked, God, how could this door close when I've stood in faith? And what came back to me, soft but sure, was, because it wasn't a door, it was a window, and I'm building you a gate. I didn't understand then, but a few months later, the opportunity that replaced it was not only greater in scope, but fit my purpose with divine precision. I realized the first path would have satisfied my desire, but the second fulfilled my destiny. Divine delay isn't denial, it's divine redesign. It's the unseen rearranging itself so that your good arrives dressed in permanence, not pretense. Now, here's the paradox. You can't always tell in the moment which one you're in, a delay or a detour, because they feel the same at first. Both come with waiting, both come with confusion, both test your patience and challenge your trust. The only difference is the energy you bring to it. When you meet a divine delay with faith, it becomes fertile. When you meet it with frustration, it turns into detour. Faith keeps the current flowing, fear bends it sideways. That's why the wisest thing you can ever do when you feel stuck is to stop forcing direction and start affirming order. Say quietly to yourself, I may not see it, but divine order is arranging everything perfectly. That sentence opens the energy. It reminds the universe that you remember who's truly navigating. Sometimes, divine delay looks like being slowed down just long enough to avoid disaster. There was a man who once told me that a job he desperately wanted fell through at the last minute. He was crushed, convinced that life was against him. Months later, the company that rejected him went bankrupt. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, I was protected and didn't even know it. That's the mercy of divine delay. It hides itself in disappointment, but when time unfolds, you see it for the blessing it was all along. And haven't we all had moments like that? The person who left, the plan that failed, the door that closed only to realize later that each no was a necessary reroute to a greater yes. But then there are times when the delay stretches so long that it starts to feel personal. You've done the work, spoken the word, kept the faith, and still the result doesn't appear. That's when the temptation to take control sneaks in. You start thinking, maybe I need to push harder, make it happen myself. And that's where human detour begins. Not because you're being punished, but because the universe, being infinitely patient, will let you walk the long way if that's how you need to learn the difference between control and creation. Control comes from fear, it says, I have to make this happen. Creation comes from faith, it says, I know this is already happening, even if I can't see it yet. The universe honors both, but only one leads to ease. The hardest thing for most people to believe is that they are allowed to rest in the middle of a delay. That they can stop pushing, stop worrying, stop analyzing silence is absence. Because silence isn't absence, it's incubation. It's the space where the unseen is taking shape. When you can trust that, the waiting stops being torture and starts being sacred. You begin to see the pause as preparation. You realize that you're not being held back, you're being held safe. The law works with such precision that even your waiting is timed. So, if you find yourself in that space right now where the doors aren't opening, where the calls aren't coming, where the signs feel dim, remember this. Delays are conversations between your faith and your future. They're proof that something larger than your schedule is at play. The divine never forgets an address. What's meant for you doesn't need to be chased, it needs to be received. When the conditions align, when your vibration matches the vision, the door that was closed will open so quietly that you'll wonder if it was ever locked. Trust the pauses, bless the slowdowns. And if you realize you've taken a detour, don't shame yourself. Grace has GPS, it will always reroute you home. There's a rhythm to life that few people ever notice because they're too busy reacting to the noise of the world to hear the melody beneath it. But if you've lived long enough, you start to see it, how the same themes circle back, how similar situations reappear, how the same kinds of people seem to cross your path in different clothes, speaking different words, but carrying the same lesson. And you begin to realize that the universe is patient, almost tender, in its teaching. It doesn't scold or punish, it simply repeats the message until you hear it. That's not cruelty, that's compassion. It's how love teaches. Because divine love would rather let you experience 100 small repetitions than allow one great loss of alignment. It wants you free, not frightened. So the lesson comes softly at first. A whisper in a conversation, a flicker of discomfort in your gut, an intuitive nudge that something is off. If you ignore it, it comes again, louder. The same pattern in a new situation, the same feeling wearing a new face. You might call it bad luck, but it's really a mirror saying, "You didn't hear me the first time." I've seen this play out countless times. A woman leaves a relationship with a man who doesn't value her, only to find herself, months later, with another who treats her the same. She wonders why it keeps happening, not realizing that life isn't punishing her, it's pointing her toward the boundary she still hasn't claimed. The message keeps repeating because she keeps choosing peace at the expense of self-respect, thinking that love requires self-sacrifice. The pattern will break the moment she says, "I am worthy of a love that doesn't ask me to shrink." And the beautiful part is, the universe isn't impatient. It will send her that lesson as many times as she needs until it finally lands not just in her mind but in her vibration. That's what it means to be guided. Even when it hurts, life loves you too much to let you settle for less than your true knowing. Every test that repeats is really a doorway that you keep walking past. You see it, you sense it, but some part of you isn't ready to walk through, so life loops back around, setting the stage once more. And each time, if you look closely, the scenery changes slightly, the timing shifts, the pain comes with a new flavor of clarity. That's how growth works. It spirals upward. You're not back at square one. You're at the same theme on a higher octave. That's why, even when it feels like you're stuck, you're not. You're just being refined to the point where you can finally receive the message without resistance, because when the lesson lands, it never needs to return. I often tell people that repetition is revelation in disguise. It's not life saying, "You failed." It's life saying, "You're ready to see more." You've graduated from denial to awareness. You can now see what was once hidden. That's progress, not punishment. And even if you've fallen into the same trap for the 10th time, bless yourself for noticing it faster than before. Every time you catch the pattern sooner, you've grown. Awareness shortens the cycle. Gratitude ends it completely. Because gratitude is the language of completion, it tells the universe, message received. You can stop now. When you can thank the pattern, even as it repeats, it has no choice but to dissolve. Think of it like waves on the shore. They don't stop because the ocean's angry, they stop when the tide turns. The repetition in your life is the tide of your consciousness, rising and falling until you find the still point. That still point is awareness. It's the moment you stop blaming others, stop labeling yourself broken, and instead ask, what belief inside me keeps calling this rhythm? And when you hear it, you'll feel the tide begin to shift. I remember once walking with a man who told me that every business venture he touched failed. He said, "It's like I'm cursed." I told him, "No, you're consistent." He blinked, confused. I said, "Every time you begin something, you start with doubt. You hope it works instead of knowing it will. The law is precise, it can only reflect the knowing, not the hoping." He fell silent, and for the first time, he saw it. The pattern wasn't a curse, it was an echo of his own uncertainty. Once he began each project with calm conviction instead of anxious striving, the results changed. The universe stopped needing to repeat the message because he had embodied it. So, the next time you see something recurring in your life, the same emotional storm, the same closed door, the same kind of disappointment, pause before you label it unfair. Ask gently, what truth have I been resisting that this situation is asking me to accept? That question is the key. Because the moment you understand the message, the mirror doesn't need to show it again. You've turned knowledge into embodiment. You've transformed repetition into realization. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about all of this is that life never gives up on you. You could take 1,000 detours and still be guided home. You could ignore the signs for years, and still, the universe will find a new way to whisper through different faces, different seasons, different storms. Because love doesn't rush, it redeems. The message will keep repeating until it no longer needs to, until it has turned your resistance into wisdom and your fear into faith. And when that happens, when you wake up one morning and realize the lesson that used to hurt now feels like peace, that's when you know the cycle has ended, not because you escaped it, but because you mastered it. So bless the repetition. Smile at the déjà vu of your own becoming. And remember, every message that repeats is really life saying, I'm not done loving you into clarity yet. There comes a point in every soul's journey when logic grows tired, when the eyes no longer see the next step clearly, and the hands that once reached for certainty finally loosen their grip and open toward mystery. It's the point where you've done everything you know to do. You've prayed, affirmed, acted, surrendered. And still, the result hasn't arrived in sight, and you realize that you're standing in the realm of the invisible, the part of creation that can't be forced or predicted, only trusted. This is where the universe whispers its most powerful invitation. Will you trust what you cannot yet see? Because faith, real faith, isn't believing in what's obvious, it's resting in what's ordered. It's the quiet confidence that divine intelligence is orchestrating every moving part, even when your human mind can't see the pattern. And if you can rest there, if you can stay still, in the unseen, you begin to experience the subtle but unstoppable momentum of divine law working on your behalf. I've always said that faith is not the denial of reality, it's the deeper recognition of order behind it. When something looks delayed, when life seems scattered, when everything you plan dissolves in front of you, there is still an unseen order holding it all together. That order doesn't need your worry to operate, it only needs your alignment. The entire universe moves in rhythm, the tides, the planets, the seasons, and your life is no exception. The same intelligence that turns night into morning, the same harmony that keeps galaxies suspended in balance, is the same law that governs your manifestation. The delay you think is chaos is really choreography. The silence you interpret as absence is the moment before sound. The door you call rejection is the hand of grace closing what cannot hold your expansion. There was once a young woman who came to me, nearly trembling with confusion. She said, "Florence, I've done everything you've taught. I've spoken my word, I've kept my faith, but nothing is moving. I can't feel God working anymore." And I smiled softly and said, "When you plant a seed, do you dig it up every day to see if it's growing?" She laughed through her tears and said no. "Then stop digging," I told her. "The soil is silent, but the seed is alive. That's the invisible order. Just because you can't hear the miracle doesn't mean it isn't sprouting beneath the surface." Sometimes the quietest seasons are the most creative. It's funny how our minds, conditioned by visible proof, keep trying to monitor the process, to check whether divine timing is on schedule, as if the universe could ever be late. But the truth is, divine order doesn't operate on our clock. Our impatience doesn't hurry it, and our doubt doesn't stop it. All it asks is that we remain in faith long enough to let the possible unfolding finish its work. The problem is never that the law isn't working, it's that we keep interrupting it. We pray for rain, then complain when the clouds gather. We affirm abundance, then speak lack because the bank account hasn't yet changed. We plant the seed, then panic when the soil looks empty. And yet, through all of it, the invisible order never loses its balance. It keeps weaving harmony beneath our noise, waiting for us to quiet down enough to feel it. Faith in the invisible is not passive, it's powerful. It's not the absence of action, but the alignment of action with trust. It's walking forward without rushing. It's speaking peace when circumstances scream otherwise. It's continuing to bless what doesn't yet look blessed. Because every word you speak in alignment sends out a vibration that calls matter into form. Every time you choose peace over panic, you clear the channel through which your good must flow. The test of this law isn't whether you can make things happen, it's whether you can stay anchored in peace when nothing appears to be happening. That's the invisible curriculum of faith. I want you to think of the ocean for a moment. You stand on the shore, and all you can see are waves, surface movement, peaks and troughs, beginnings and endings. But beneath that surface, the current moves with deep steadiness, unaffected by the weather above. That current is divine order. It carries you even when the surface feels rough. When you learn to identify with that current instead of the waves, You stop being tossed by circumstance. You trust the invisible rhythm guiding everything underneath your perception. And here's something even deeper. The invisible order doesn't only manage outcomes, it manages timing. The law doesn't just deliver what you ask for, it delivers it when your vibration is ready to sustain it. That's why some things seem delayed, they're being held in waiting until you've grown into their frequency. The miracle isn't late, it's waiting for you to arrive. And when you do, it meets you with such effortless synchronicity that you can only smile and say, "Of course, this was always meant for me." That's not coincidence, it's correspondence. So if you find yourself in the in-between right now, where faith feels fragile and silence feels endless, take a breath. Don't force the unseen to hurry. Trust that the same intelligence that beats your heart and breathes your lungs knows how to deliver your good in perfect time. You don't need to chase what's divinely ordered to find you. You don't need to fight the silence to prove something's working. You just need to remember that the invisible order is not something you earn, it's something you align with. Say softly to yourself, "I am guided even when I can't see the guide. I am carried even when I can't feel the hands that hold me." Because the moment you affirm that, the chaos begins to settle, the air grows clearer, and the path that seemed hidden begins to glow with quiet certainty. That's when you discover the truth that was waiting all along, that the invisible was never empty. It was always divine. It was always ordered. It was always enough. Here's something I've learned, not from theory or books, but from the slow, quiet unfolding of life itself. Everything begins to move the moment you stop trying to manage it. Every time I've wrestled with an outcome, every time I've worried, forced, begged, or bargained, things tangled tighter. But the instant I released my grip, not in defeat, but in faith, the knot untied itself, the pieces rearranged, and the flow returned. Surrender is not weakness, it's alignment. It's the highest form of strength because it's the choice to trust a wisdom greater than your own. It's not giving up, it's giving over to the current, to the rhythm, to the divine order that's already holding you. The universe isn't asking you to figure it out, it's asking you to stop interfering with what's already being worked out. And when you make that switch, when you stop trying to push life and instead let yourself be pulled by it, you realize how much power there is in peace. Most people think surrender means losing control, but the truth is, we never had control to begin with. What we've had is choice, and that's the only control that matters. You can choose worry or you can choose trust. You can choose tension or you can choose flow. Every moment is a fork in the road where you decide whether to row upstream or let the river carry you. And the river, make no mistake, knows exactly where it's going. It's not random, it's not cruel, it's not testing your worthiness, it's proving your readiness. The current doesn't fight you, it moves according to the depth of your faith. If you can let go of the illusion that you must steer every turn, you'll find that you're always guided. And you'll look back and realize that what you once called detours were simply divine routes revealed in disguise. I remember a time when I was clinging tightly to something that was never mine to hold. I thought that if I prayed hard enough, affirmed long enough, I could make it stay. I was so sure that losing it would mean failure, that letting go would mean the end. But life, in its quiet mercy, had other plans. It closed that door, and for a while I stood in the hallway, pounding on the wood, begging it to open again. It never did. What I didn't realize then was that my grip on what was familiar was blocking what was waiting. When I finally let go, when I exhaled the last bit of resistance, I could almost feel something shift inside me. The weight lifted, the ache softened, and within weeks, something entirely new appeared, something I couldn't have imagined while my hands were still full of what was gone. That's the secret. You can't receive while you're holding on. The surrender switch is the pivot point between chaos and clarity. It's the instant when you move from, "I must make this happen," to "I trust that this is happening through me." It's a softening, not a stopping. It's the decision to act from faith instead of fear. Fear screams, "What if?" Faith whispers, "Even if." And that whisper carries you further than any amount of effort ever could. The law responds not to struggle, but to stillness. When you stop trying to control how and when, the energy that was trapped in resistance rushes back into creation. You become a vessel instead of an obstacle. You stop blocking the flow and start being the flow. Now, that doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you do only what aligns. You take inspired steps, not desperate ones. You move with the rhythm, not against it. You do your part and trust the divine to handle the rest. This is where so many stumble. They confuse surrender with apathy. But true surrender is vibrant. It's awake. It's active trust. It's showing up for your life fully while releasing the illusion that you're in charge of every outcome. It's saying, I've planted the seed, I'll water it, but I won't pry open the soil to check if it's growing. You respect the invisible process because you know that the invisible is where everything real begins. There's a phrase I love to use. Let go of the oar. Picture yourself in a boat on a wide, living river. You've been rowing hard for so long, chasing goals, fixing problems, forcing answers. Your arms are sore, your mind is tired, and you keep hitting the same rocks. But then, one day, you pause. You set down the oars. You let the current take over. At first, it feels terrifying because the boat begins to move faster than you can predict. But then you notice something: you're gliding. The river curves naturally, carrying you past obstacles you used to crash into. You realize you're not lost. You're finally being guided. That's what surrender feels like. It's scary for a moment, then sacred for a lifetime. And the more you practice it, the more you trust it. You begin to notice how everything rearranges itself in your favor once you stop gripping so tightly. The right people appear, the timing clicks, the resources flow. What used to require strain now happens with grace. Because the universe was never withholding, it was simply waiting for your hands to open. It's like trying to catch the wind. You can't grasp it, but you can spread your arms and feel it move through you. That's how life wants to move through you, not against you. So if you're standing at a crossroads, exhausted from rowing, wondering why the more you push, the further your dream seems to drift, consider this. Maybe the current isn't against you. Maybe it's just waiting for you to stop rowing long enough to remember that you're already in the flow. Let go of the how, bless the unknown, trust the river. Because once you flip that switch, once you surrender not in fear but in faith, you'll realize that what you thought was falling apart was really just falling into place, perfectly, beautifully, divinely, on time. There's a place in every manifestation that no one likes to talk about, a long, quiet stretch between planting the seed and harvesting the fruit. It's the part where you've done everything you can, you've prayed, affirmed, visualized, released, and yet there's no visible proof that anything's moving. The world around you still looks the same, and the temptation creeps in to start meddling again, to dig in the soil, to rearrange what's already growing. That's the middle. The middle is the test of trust, the passage between intention and evidence, the invisible bridge where human impatience meets divine order. Most people lose their miracle in the middle because they mistake stillness for stagnation. They panic at the pause and decide to take matters back into their own hands, not realizing that the very act of interference disturbs the process that's already working in their favor. The middle isn't punishment, it's protection. It's God saying, I've got this part. Let me handle the sequencing while you handle the believing. You see, your job was never to micromanage the miracle. Your only job was to speak it, to see it, to align with it. Once you've done that, the law takes over. Divine order knows the shortest, safest, most harmonious route to your good. But from where you stand, it often looks messy because you can't yet see the entire map. You only see the detours, the closed doors, the strange coincidences that make no sense at all. You look at the pieces scattered before you and say, how could this possibly work? But that's because you're looking at the puzzle from inside the box. God sees the picture on the lid. God knows exactly how each odd-shaped piece fits into place. And if you can resist the urge to grab control, you'll watch those pieces lock together in perfect rhythm, often faster than you could have forced them yourself. I remember once telling a student who was frustrated by the silence of her prayer life, God is not ignoring you, he's orchestrating. She said, but I can't see anything happening. And I replied, then you're looking in the wrong direction. You see, the miracle rarely starts where you can see it. It starts in the invisible network of connections and alignments that must be arranged before the visible fruit can appear. Think of it like a play being staged. Before the curtain rises, the stagehands are busy behind the scenes, adjusting the lights, shifting the props, tuning the music. You don't see that work, but it's essential to the show. If you barged backstage too early, demanding proof, you'd ruin the performance. The middle is your backstage. It's where divine choreography happens. It's where timing, people, and places align under perfect order. Your part is to stay in the audience of faith, to sit in peace, knowing that the music hasn't stopped, it's just changing tempo. The problem is that our human minds crave completion. We want to see the full path before we take the next step. But divine law doesn't work that way. It gives you enough light for the step you're on, and then, once you take that step, it gives you the next one. That's how faith grows, not by seeing, but by stepping. Every time you act on trust instead of fear, the middle shortens. Every time you bless the pause instead of cursing it, the alignment accelerates. Because the universe interprets peace as permission to proceed. Chaos tells it you're not ready. Calm says, continue. That's why worry delays what faith delivers. The energy you hold in the middle is the bridge between what you've spoken and what you'll see. So when you find yourself asking, why hasn't it happened yet? Remember this. Divine order doesn't rush because it doesn't fail. You can't miss what's meant for you when you're aligned with love. Even your mistakes are woven into the pattern. Even your detours are accounted for. You're not late, you're layered. Every moment that feels like waiting is really weaving. Threads are crossing in unseen places. Timing is knitting your blessing together behind the curtain of time. And one day, when the curtain rises, you'll look back and realize that every delay was divine design. I like to imagine God smiling gently, saying, I didn't need you to figure it out. I just needed you to stay faithful while I worked it out. That's what letting God handle the middle really means. It means releasing your need to monitor the miracle. It means trusting that your prayer didn't vanish into thin air the moment you spoke it. It's still reverberating through the universe, gathering the resources, moving the people, aligning the timing. Just because you can't, you see, the movement doesn't mean the motion stopped. The seed doesn't need your supervision, it needs your surrender. The irony is that the more you try to control the middle, the longer it lasts. The more you push, the more resistance you create. But when you let go, truly let go, the middle becomes mercifully short. Because what shortens waiting isn't time, it's trust. When you rest in faith, the universe relaxes with you. Everything moves faster in ease than it ever will in effort. The unseen loves a calm receiver. That's when miracles find you naturally, as if they've been circling the block waiting for you to open the door. So, if you're in the middle right now, stop counting the days, stop checking the soil, stop doubting the silence. Instead, take a breath, smile softly, and say, the same power that started this will finish it. The same hand that planted this will harvest it. I release the how, I trust the flow, I let God handle the middle. Because when you can say that and mean it, you've already crossed the bridge. You've already entered the miracle. You just haven't caught up to its reflection yet. There comes a moment in every soul's awakening when waiting no longer makes sense, when you realize that hoping and praying for something that already exists in divine substance is a quiet form of doubt, and you stop asking and start acting as if. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the sacred confidence that says, I know it's mine because I've already claimed it in consciousness. The universe doesn't respond to longing, it responds to knowing. It doesn't move for desperation, it moves for certainty. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you believe yourself to already have. That's the secret pulse behind every manifestation, the quiet law humming beneath all appearance. Act as if it's done, and the outer world will have no choice but to catch up. Most people live in a state of someday. Someday I'll be happy. Someday I'll feel secure. Someday I'll see proof that my prayer worked. But someday never arrives because it's a vibration of postponement. The law hears not yet and mirrors it back. So the blessing stays just out of reach, circling the edges of your reality, waiting for you to say, now. When you live as if, you collapse the distance between desire and demonstration. You bring heaven to earth through the conviction of your own faith. Because in truth, the unseen is already finished. The delay isn't in manifestation, it's in our recognition. God finished the work long before you asked for it. Faith is the act of walking through time as though eternity has already delivered. Living as if doesn't mean pretending. It means embodying the energy of fulfillment before the evidence appears. It means speaking from the end instead of about the end. When you wake in the morning, don't say, "I'm waiting for abundance." Say, "I live in abundance." Don't pray, "Send me love." Say, "Love flows through every part of my life now." Words are wands, and the moment you speak from completion, the universe reorganizes itself to match the vibration of your declaration. The outer follows the inner, like shadow follows light. You become the cause, not the effect. I once met a man who had been struggling for years to sell his artwork. He told me, "Florence, I keep affirming success, but nothing happens." I asked him, "Do you still call yourself a struggling artist?" He nodded. "Then the universe believes you." I told him to start signing his letters, "Professional artist." I told him to walk through his studio each morning as if every canvas was already sold, to thank each piece as though it had already found its buyer. Within a month, a gallery discovered his work and offered him a contract. Nothing mystical, just metaphysical law, responding to embodiment. He stopped vibrating at struggle and tuned himself to success. The mirror adjusted instantly. You see, the outer world can only echo the inner conviction. You can't wait for evidence to feel worthy, you must feel worthy to produce evidence. Faith is the bridge between belief and being. When you cross that bridge, you stop trying to manifest and start magnetizing. You move from "I hope" to "I know," from "please" to "thank you." Gratitude is the language of the fulfilled. It signals to the universe that the manifestation is complete. And that's why gratitude must come before the gift. It's not an afterthought, it's the activator. When you wake each day and say, "Thank you that it's already done," you're not lying to yourself, you're aligning yourself. You're stepping into the vibration where all things are possible and already provided. This is how every miracle unfolds. You plant the seed in thought, water it with gratitude, and live as though it's blooming. You walk through your day with quiet confidence, not arrogance but assurance. You stop checking the soil and start enjoying the garden. And here's the subtle miracle. The moment you stop chasing the outcome begins chasing you. Because nothing can resist a consciousness that already knows it's complete. You draw your good to you the way a magnet draws iron, without effort, without noise, without doubt. Now, this doesn't mean ignoring appearances. It means refusing to be ruled by them. When lack seems loud, when doors appear closed, when nothing seems to shift, you hold your peace and act from the truth that the unseen is already forming. You still pay your bills, you still make your calls, you still take inspired action, but you do it from the energy of completion, not from the vibration of fear. You move like someone who knows the check is already in the mail. Even if the envelope hasn't arrived yet, you bless the process instead of rushing it. That's living as if. And perhaps the greatest piece of all comes when you realize that faith doesn't create your good, it reveals it. You were never separate from your supply, you were just unaware of it. The moment you align with the frequency of already done, you meet your good halfway. It's been walking toward you all along. So right now, wherever you are, whisper this softly to yourself. It is finished. My good is complete. I live as one who already has. Then walk through your day with that knowing humming in your chest. Don't wait for signs, be the sign. Don't search for proof, be the proof. Because when you begin to live like that, the universe rushes to mirror your conviction. The doors open, the calls come, the timing flows. And you realize that the miracle didn't just arrive, it was waiting all along for you to finally act like it had. That's the real magic of faith. It doesn't ask for proof, it becomes proof. There's a moment that comes after every great test, a quiet reckoning that arrives once the noise has settled and the dust of struggle has fallen away. It's the moment you realize that the test wasn't really about the situation, it was about you. It wasn't about losing or winning, failing or succeeding, it was about who you became in the middle of it. The universe, in its infinite precision, designs these moments not to punish, but to promote. Every challenge that stretched you, every delay that frustrated you, every heartbreak that cracked your shell was an invitation to evolve into the version of yourself who could hold the blessing you asked for. Because what good would it be to receive a miracle your character isn't ready to sustain? Transformation is the soul's insurance policy. It ensures that when your good arrives, it stays. And it's a beautiful thing to discover that the test itself was never separate from the miracle, it was the miracle in disguise. The same way pressure turns coal into diamond, the same way fire refines gold, Your tests have been carving your brilliance from the raw material of your faith. When you understand that, you stop resenting the challenges that once scared you. You start thanking them, even blessing them, because they were never random. They were tailored. They were sculpting you. That moment of confusion, that season of loss, that delay that made you question everything, they were all coated with instruction. Each one whispered, "There's more in you, and it's time to bring it forward." The shift happens the moment you stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What's this teaching me?" That single question changes the entire vibration. "Why me?" keeps you in the loop of resistance. "What's this teaching me?" moves you into the flow of revelation. The universe is patient. It will keep presenting the same lesson until you bless it, until you stop seeing it as a problem and start seeing it as preparation. And when you do, the lesson no longer hurts. It hums. It turns from pain into pattern, from chaos into clarity, from test into transformation. I remember a woman who once came to me heartbroken after losing everything, her job, her partner, her home. She said, "Florence, I've been faithful, but I don't understand why this is happening." I told her, "You're not losing anything. You're shedding." The universe wasn't taking from her. It was pruning her life of what could no longer hold her expansion. Within months, she found herself in a new city, in a job that aligned with her calling, surrounded by people who reflected her growth. What she thought was destruction was actually construction. It just didn't look that way while the scaffolding was still up. That's the pattern of transformation. It looks like endings until the new structure rises. When you bless what broke you, you reclaim your power. You turn the wound into wisdom. You stop carrying the old story of what happened to me and begin telling the re-time story of what happened through me. That's when pain becomes purpose. Every test becomes testimony. You start radiating the peace you fought to find, and others feel it just by being near you. Your presence becomes the teaching. You don't have to preach. You just walk into a room, and people feel the calm that says, "I've been through the fire, but I didn't burn, I became light." That's the highest form of prosperity, not the things you have, but the peace you carry. The secret is gratitude. Gratitude is the key that turns every test into transformation. It's easy to be thankful when life flows smoothly, but the real alchemy happens when you can give thanks in the middle of the storm. When you say, "Even this is working for my good," something shifts in the atmosphere. Gratitude changes your frequency faster than any affirmation. It tells the universe, "I trust you," and the universe, hearing that, accelerates the lesson and delivers the blessing. Because once you bless the test, it has no reason to stay. It's finished its work. So take a moment now and think about the tests you've faced. The losses, the delays, the disappointments. Look at them again with new eyes. Can you see the divine fingerprints? The moments that redirected you, the tears that softened you, the silences that taught you to listen? Can you see how the pieces that once felt random now fit together in perfect order? That's the evidence of transformation. That's life whispering, "You passed." And here's the most miraculous part. When you reach that state of awareness, you realize there was never a separation between test and blessing, between struggle and success. They were two sides of the same coin, turning in the light of your becoming. You understand that every challenge was an act of grace disguised as resistance. Every delay was divine mercy, giving you time to grow into your own readiness. Every heartbreak was a holy rearrangement, clearing space for the love you truly deserved, and you begin to smile not because the test is gone, but because you finally see what it came to give. So, the next time life tightens around you, when it feels like the walls are closing in, remember this. The universe isn't cornering you, it's carving you. The pressure you feel is proof of your potential. The breaking point is the birth canal. Don't fight the contractions, they're pushing you toward new consciousness. Keep breathing, keep blessing, keep believing. Because one day, very soon, you'll look back on this season and whisper the words that every awakened soul eventually learns to say with peace in their heart. It was never a test. It was a transformation in progress. There's a quiet, nearly invisible turning point that lives inside every deep heartbreak, every disappointment, every season that once made you feel like you were losing everything. It doesn't come with thunder or tears, it comes like dawn, soft, slow, nearly imperceptible at first, and then, all at once, everything looks different in the same light. That turning point is when you finally bless what broke you. Until that moment, you may still carry the story like a stone in your chest, rehearsing what happened, who said what you lost, what should have been. The mind clings to the edges of old pain because it believes that to let go of it is to let go of justice, to let go of the proof that you were wronged. But the soul doesn't care about justice, it only cares about freedom. And freedom never comes from recounting the wound, it comes from releasing it, blessing it, thanking it for its role, and then letting it return to the light from which it came. Because everything that enters your life, even the pain, serves a divine purpose. And when you bless it, you graduate from it. I've known souls who held on to pain like a badge of honor, believing it made them strong, when in truth it only made them heavy. Pain that isn't blessed becomes baggage. Pain that's blessed becomes wisdom. There's a difference between remembering and reliving. Remembering is sacred, it gives you perspective and compassion. Reliving keeps you stuck in the same vibration, inviting new versions of the same lesson. Blessing what broke you means you stop reliving. You look at the story, acknowledge it fully, thank it for what it revealed, and then you release it into peace. It's a spiritual alchemy, the transmutation of suffering into strength. When I think of blessing what broke me, I remember a friend who lost everything in a single year. Her job, her home, her partner. She told me she felt like she was standing in the ruins of her own life, and she asked how she could possibly bless what had destroyed her. I told her, blessing doesn't mean you call it good, it means you call it done. She looked at me, confused, and I said, blessing is a declaration of closure, it's saying, this no longer defines me. For weeks, she began whispering those words each morning. I bless what happened. I bless who I was. I bless who I'm becoming. Slowly, her energy shifted. She stopped speaking from her wounds and started speaking from her wisdom. Months later, she told me, Florence, I didn't just get my life back, I got myself back. That's what blessing does, it gives you back to yourself. You see, forgiveness and blessing walk hand in hand. Forgiveness clears the path, blessing lights it. Forgiveness says, I release you. Blessing says, I release me. When you bless what broke you, you reclaim the fragments of your own power that you left behind in the story. You call yourself back into wholeness, and in that wholeness, you find peace so profound that nothing from the past can disturb it again. The memories might still visit you, but they'll arrive as teachers, not as tormentors. You'll see them through the lens of grace, and instead of asking, why did this happen to me? You'll whisper, thank you for teaching me who I am. There's something holy about gratitude that comes from pain. It's the rarest kind of light, forged in darkness. It doesn't deny the wound, it redeems it. It turns the deepest ache into the deepest compassion. Because once you've truly blessed your own breaking, you can never look at another broken soul without love. You stop judging others for where they are because you remember where you've been. You stop competing for healing because you understand that all pain is the same pain wearing different masks. You begin to live with an open heart, not a guarded one, because you know that nothing can truly harm you anymore, not when you've made peace with everything that ever did. And perhaps that's the quiet miracle of blessing what broke you. It turns your life into a sanctuary where everything, even sorrow, has a place to rest. You stop fearing the next loss because you've already learned that loss isn't the end, it's the beginning of revelation. You no longer dread endings because you understand they are transitions in disguise. Every closed door, every betrayal, every fall, was simply the hand of the divine, rearranging your path towards something truer. The soul never breaks, it only breaks open. So if you're standing in a season of ashes right now, if you're still sifting through the pieces of what once was, whisper this softly, I bless this, even if I don't understand it yet. Because that sentence is a spell of release, it opens the sky above you. It tells the universe that you're done fighting what already is and ready to receive what can be. You don't have to feel grateful right away, just be willing. Willingness is enough to start the current of grace. The rest will follow. In time, you'll look back on the very thing that once felt unbearable and see that it was never here to harm you, it was here to heal you. It was the storm that cleared the air, the fire that refined the gold, the breaking that revealed the brilliance beneath the surface. And when that recognition arrives, when you can look at the memory and feel peace instead of pain, that's how you'll know the blessing is complete. The wound has done its work. You've turned pain into power. and you've turned your story into light. There's a sacred point on the path where you wake up one morning and realize you've crossed an invisible line, and though your outer life may still look the same, something inside you has been permanently rearranged. The ache that used to throb has softened into stillness, the questions that once screamed have quieted into knowing, and the story that once made you flinch has begun to shine like a lantern for others. That's the shift from test to testimony. It doesn't happen all at once. It ripens in you the way dawn ripens across the sky gradually, then completely. And one day, you catch yourself doing something you never thought possible. Speaking peace where you once spoke pain, smiling where you once wept, holding compassion for the very thing that once hurt you most. You realize that what once broke you has become the very bridge that carries others across their own storm. That's the alchemy of grace. It takes what was meant to destroy you and turns it into a doorway of deliverance, not just for you, but for everyone who touches your story. You see, every test is designed to reveal your testimony, and every testimony becomes a seed of light for someone else who's still walking through their own night. That's why the universe doesn't waste a single tear. Nothing you've endured is random. Every season of darkness you've survived has been recorded in the language of vibration, and that vibration radiates from you even when you're silent. People can feel it. They don't always know why they're drawn to you, but they sense that you carry something real, something that's been tested and proven in the fire of experience. You don't have to convince them. Your energy does the speaking. That's what true testimony is, not words, but presence. The peace you embody becomes your message. I've met people who have been through storms so fierce they thought they'd never stand again, yet when you meet them, they shine with a calm so steady it feels like standing in sunlight. They don't talk about faith, they are faith. They don't recite lessons, they live them. Their eyes say, "I've been where you are, and I know the way out." And when they speak, you listen not because of eloquence, but because their words are anchored in lived truth. That's what your test is preparing you for, the authority of authenticity. You can't teach peace until you've sat in the middle of chaos and found it for yourself. You can't speak about trust until you've faced uncertainty and refused to break. Life refines your voice until it carries the weight of knowing. This is why I always say don't hide your healing. Don't rush past your pain and then pretend it never happened. Because the moment you conceal it, you cut off the flow of its power. Your story isn't shameful, it's sacred. It's how the universe teaches through you. Every healed wound becomes a portal through which light enters the world. And when you share from that place, not from seeking validation but from the quiet impulse to serve, your pain stops being personal and starts being purposeful. It stops echoing in isolation and starts resonating as inspiration. You become a walking reminder that miracles aren't myths, they're memories in motion. But here's the beautiful paradox. The moment you turn your test into testimony, you no longer need to talk about it, you radiate it. The lesson integrates so deeply that you carry it in your breath, in your laughter, in your silence. You become the frequency of freedom itself. You can walk into a room and shift the atmosphere without saying a word. Because the vibration of someone who has been transformed is unmistakable. It's steady, it's magnetic, it's grace wearing human form. And when others encounter that energy, they begin to believe in healing again, not because you preached it, but because you are it. There's a story I once told of a man who survived what he thought would ruin him. His business collapsed, his family turned against him, and his health faltered. For months, he walked through darkness convinced that his life was over. But one day, sitting alone, he began to speak gratitude into the air, not because things had improved, but because he wanted to feel alive again. He thanked the breath in his lungs, the light filtering through the window, the possibility that somewhere, somehow, something good could still emerge. Slowly, his energy shifted. He began helping others who were struggling, sharing his insights quietly without expectation. Years later, his life rebuilt itself, not through striving, but through service. He told me, "Florence, the moment I stopped asking why and started helping others through their own why, everything changed." That's when his test became his testimony. And this, I believe, is the final gift of every trial. Once you've come through, you become the answer to someone else's prayer. Your survival becomes someone else's proof. Your peace becomes their permission. The energy you now carry whispers to others, "If I can rise, so can you." And that whisper is more powerful than any sermon. It's the sound of shared awakening, the sacred echo of one soul, reminding another that we are never truly alone in the fire. So bless your tests, yes, but also share your light. Don't diminish what you've learned by keeping it hidden. Let your scars speak softly for the divine, they're proof that grace is real. And remember, you didn't go through all that to return unchanged. You went through it so that, by your very being, others would remember their own divinity. That's how heaven works through us. It turns our lowest moments into living maps for others to find their way home. And when you can look back at all of it, the pain, the loss, the delay, the faith, the victory, and see that there was never a single wasted moment, you'll know you've completed the transformation. You'll stand in quiet awe and realize that the universe never tested you to see if you were worthy of the miracle. It tested you so you would discover that you were the miracle all along. There comes a moment after the testimony, after the story has been told and the healing has settled into the bones, when you stop searching for miracles and start living as one. It's subtle at first. You notice that you're no longer praying from lack, you're communing from love. You no longer look at challenges as enemies, you see them as mirrors showing you where more faith is needed. You stop waiting for signs because you've become the sign. You start waking each morning with a quiet awareness that everything around you, every sound, every breath, every face, is part of the divine conversation unfolding perfectly in time. That's integration. When what you once practiced becomes who you are, when the language of trust becomes your native tongue, when the presence of peace no longer visits occasionally but lives in you permanently. You move differently then. You stop striving for alignment because you are alignment. You no longer perform faith, you radiate it. You live inside the rhythm of grace, like a fish lives in water unaware of separation, completely surrounded by support. Integration is the completion of transformation, the sacred absorption of truth into every cell of your being. It's when knowledge becomes embodiment. You can't fake it, you can't rush it, you can only allow it. The same way the body knows how to heal a wound without your instruction, the soul knows how to harmonize once you stop interrupting it with fear. It takes time, patience, and a gentleness that few grant themselves. Because after the breakthrough, there's often a strange emptiness, a quiet after the storm. You expect fireworks, but what arrives is stillness. That's the space where the new self roots. It's not stagnation, it's settling. It's the divine cement drying beneath the foundation of your new consciousness. If you can honor that stillness, if you can stay tender and open instead of rushing toward the next goal, your growth deepens. The miracle integrates not just into your mind but into your movements, your habits, your choices, your voice. You'll notice that even your language changes. You stop saying, "I'm trying." You start saying, "I'm trusting." You stop declaring problems. You start describing patterns. You stop seeking validation because you've found verification within your own peace. And suddenly, the very world that once felt heavy begins to move in harmony with you. Doors open, without effort. People who match your frequency find their way to you, as if magnetized by some unseen thread. You begin to realize that you no longer chase what's meant for you, because what's meant for you is already moving toward the person you've become. You can feel the law of correspondence pulsing softly beneath the surface of every moment. As within, so without. The outer reality bends to the certainty of your inner order. And here's the most profound part. Integration doesn't erase your humanity, it sanctifies it. You still have moments of doubt, flashes of fear, days when the light dims, but those moments no longer define you. You greet them with curiosity instead of criticism. You say, here's another chance to practice peace. You stop condemning yourself for forgetting because you know remembering always follows. You realize that mastery isn't perfection, it's presence. It's the willingness to return again and again, to trust, no matter how many times you've wandered. It's choosing faith not once, but daily, hourly, breath by breath, until faith and breath become the same thing. That's when life stops being a lesson and becomes a liturgy. Every action, every silence, every interaction becomes an act of devotion. I once knew a man who, after years of struggle, finally found himself living in a state of grace so natural he almost didn't notice it. He told me, "Florence, I used to chase peace like it was something outside of me. Now I wake up and it's just here." That's the evidence of integration you stop seeking because you've become what you were looking for. The teacher and the teaching, the prayer and the answer, the seeker and the found, they merge. You realize you've never been separate from your source. You were the light looking for itself all along. And as this awareness deepens, life becomes extraordinarily simple. You begin to see that everything truly is happening for you, not to you. The old urgency dissolves, you walk slower, you listen more. You laugh easier, you bless constantly. Even challenges become companions, gently reminding you that expansion is still unfolding. You stop fearing the unknown because you finally trust the one who knows. That's the ultimate freedom, not control, not certainty, but communion. You don't need to predict the path anymore because you've become one with the presence that designs it. So when people ask you, how do you know when the miracle has fully arrived? You'll smile and say, when I stopped waiting for it, because that's the truth. Miracles don't arrive from outside, they awaken from within. They're the moment you remember who you are, who you've always been, and who you'll never stop being. Pure potential wrapped in form, divine law walking around in shoes, love remembering itself as you. And that's where the journey comes full circle. You started this path wondering if the universe would test you, and now you understand it never tested you to judge your worth. It tested you to reveal your worthiness to yourself. Every delay, every detour, every heartbreak was part of that revelation. Each one brought you closer to this moment, the realization that you and the miracle are one. That there's no waiting, no distance, no separation. There is only God in motion, and you are that motion. So rest here. Let this truth settle deep into your bones. You are not chasing the light, you are emanating it. You are not enduring the test, you are expressing the truth. The miracle has already arrived. It's breathing as you.